Welcome back to another episode of The War Room. I'm your host, Warfi2896, and today we'll be covering the in-person regionals that took place in Mesquite, Texas, hosted by Place TCG. Just a quick disclaimer before we move on, I am feeling a bit under the weather, so I'm sorry if I don't sound too hot or if I give you garbage takes. We're going to blame that on the fever. So let's just jump right into the top 16 breakdown here. So we can see that there's 5 Imperialdramons, 2 Mother Controls, 2 Ancientgarurumon, 1 MirageGaogamon, 1 Fenriloogamon Takemikazuchi, 1 Magnamon X, 1 Jesmon, 1 Yellow Vaccine, 1 Blackwargreymon, and 1 Omnimon Ace. So this is again a pretty diverse spread, which is what we've been seeing for most of this format, with a lot of 1-ofs here. And as always, Imperialdramon seems to be the top dog of the format. We are seeing a lot of new decks here that we haven't seen previously in this format, such as Jesmon and Blackwargreymon. I'll go more into detail about that once we get to those individual deck profiles, but I do believe the introduction of the Mother Control deck has had an interesting impact on the meta, where a lot of decks are being gatekept, but at the same time, previously gatekept decks are able to come back out of the woodworks now that the format has quote-unquote slowed down a little bit. One caveat that I do have regarding this event is it looks like this event didn't really cap out. We only have 214 people, so take that into consideration when you do look at some of these decks that did top. I'm not really sure if they would top in a full-size event, but regardless, I don't want to take away from the achievements of the players. So once again, congratulations to all of you, and let's just hop into the individual deck breakdowns. The first list I want to talk about is our first place MirageGaogamon player. Interestingly, this just looks like an old school version of MirageGaogamon, for lack of better terms, because recently we've been seeing a lot of players switching over to the Huankunmon build and the Bukumon that gains a memory when you play out something from your sources. But this seems to opt for a full Mock Galgamon that prevents redirection, along with the Zudomon. Interestingly, there's only the BT11 MirageGaogamon. There's no secondary level 6, instead opting for 4 trainings and 4 members, just maxing out on searchers and consistency. Besides that, I think this is a fairly standard build, nothing really of note here. But yeah, congratulations to you, and please Bandai, hit that BT11 Mirage. I'm sick of seeing this deck win. Next up, I want to talk about the second place Fenriloogamon list. So this is a deck that I've been saying for a while that I'm surprised doesn't do better than it does, because it is probably the best quote-unquote OTK deck that we have in the format, being able to kill turn 2, and it's really good at controlling the board while climbing up into your boss monster, so you can play around a lot of aces and stuff. There are some decks that do really provide a lot of trouble for this deck, such as the 7 Great Demon Lords. So if you kill the Lucemon Chaos mode, they can just play out a Levi or Creepy and just pop your Takemikazuchi, passing your turn, which can be quite unfortunate. And there are some other decks as well that this deck struggles against. Yeah, congratulations to you. It's really cool to see that this deck finally got a top 8 finish and a second place at that. This third place Imperialdramon is pretty interesting. For the most part, it is a standard build, but there are a couple of things of note. The first is the Dino Beamon from BT12. So this is a card we saw in a previous list as well, and it's pretty interesting just giving that plus 3000 DP, which can help you get to bigger numbers to help counteract stuff like the Mother that's a blocker, and the inheritable trashing security can be really helpful too, just help remove more security without actually checking them, which is pretty good. And I see most people playing only 1 Paladin mode, so this deck having 2 Paladin modes is quite significant for a couple of reasons, but I think the biggest reason is probably the ability to loop your own deck multiple times against decks such as the Mother Control, because that is one of their win conditions, is decking you out, so preventing that is really powerful for the deck. But yeah, congratulations to you. This is the 4th place Magnamon X profile. 2 things that stand out to me immediately are them playing 3 Flamedramons instead of any of the BT13 Magnamons, which is pretty interesting because you only have the 1 Awakening, the 1 Zudomon Ace, so you want more ways to go into your Magnamon X, so that's why people tend to run more than the 8 Magnamons now. So I'm curious as to how many times this player, if ever, they were stuck in a position where they had a Flamedramon and they weren't able to climb up into their Magnamon X. So, and another thing of note is them playing 2 high-speed plug-in Ds. to make them unblockable, because besides this, they really have no other way of beating Mother Control, and your Magnamon X can get multiple swings with that card, especially if you have something like the Shuyu Lin or the Final Zubagon Punch, so you can OTK with just the one high-speed plug-in D. So I think this is a tech that we will see in the deck going forward, because like I said, Mother Control is probably one of the hardest matchups for this deck. But yeah, congratulations to you on your 4th place finish. This is a very interesting Imperialdramon list, for the sole reason that the level 6 lineup is kind of insane. So first of all, they're playing 4 of the BT16 Dragon modes, which is a really good floodgate to go into your fighter modes. But this deck is only playing one fighter mode, and it's not even the fighter mode ace, it's the BT12 fighter mode, which is a really powerful card, but having no fighter mode aces is kind of crazy to me. The only reason I can think of maxing out on this is because this is one of your win conditions against Shoto Mother Control. If you prevent their Shotos from unsuspending, they cannot give the Mother blocker, but the deck has other ways to play around this, such as giving your Mother blocker through the means of stuff like Mercurymon. So if there's another reason for maxing out on this, I would love to know why, because it really boggles my mind that they're only playing the one fighter mode with 4 dragon modes. The 2 Hexablows, I think it will be a standard going forward as long as Mother Control is in the format. And they're also playing the one of Gigadeath, which is, I think, a hit or miss card. Besides that, congratulations to you, really interesting level 6 lineup. So this looks like our first Mother Control to break into the top 8 in North America. And it's a very interesting build. Instead of opting for the hybrid build, it's more leaning into the ace mechanic with a lot of level 6s and level 5 aces. I think one card that stands out a lot here is the Turimon. First glance, I had no idea what this did, so I had to check with the other case hunters if they can figure out why this is in the deck. To me, it just looked like it was an ace target for the level 5s, but I feel like it just played level 5s. But they also explained to me it's the cheapest alliance Digimon that you can play besides Swapmon, and it provides the color requirements to ace into your level 5s, and you can also play it off your Shrewdmon ace. So if you play this off the Shrewdmon ace, the next turn you're threatening 4 swings with 2 alliance swings from Shrewdmon and 2 alliance swings from Turimon, so it provides a lot of aggression for the deck. They're also playing 4 of the promo Nightmon. I can't see a reason to play this besides it just meeting all the color requirements similar to Edelmon for all of your aces. Again, if somebody can provide insight on why this is in the deck, because I cannot see the Inheritable going live at all because they're not playing any level 3s in this deck, so maybe it's just the on-play minus 3k DP. But yeah, besides that, this is a deck that has a lot of toolbox-like qualities, making it primed for a lot of innovation. So yeah, congratulations to you. So over here we have our 7th place Imperialdramon list, and this is the last Imperialdramon list I'll talk about today. And I just want to point out 2 key cards here. One is the Heaven's Judgment, which is a pretty good removal in this deck because it's always live as long as you have your Davis Ken or any of your green Digimon on board. And you can do 18 to 24,000 DP reduction with it, depending on if you have your any of your level 5s or higher or your Paladin mode ace. And they also have the Invincible Dragon Insect Fusion, which is a card that even I played it myself in BT16 and EX6, but I felt no reason to play it going into the new format because Primo just seemed like a better option. But looking at the format now with the introduction of Mother Control, this is a pretty good card because it prevents you from being deleted in battle, which is really powerful, and also gives you blocker to provide a little bit of defense for the deck and helps you DNA for a little bit cheaper by playing stuff like the Stingmon or XVmon from hand. So yeah, it's a pretty neat tech to see this card come back, a card that I thought was obsolete. But yeah, congratulations to you. Next we have our 8th place Jesmon list. So I know this is a list that a lot of you are probably excited to see here. I know there's a lot of fans of the Jesmon list, even including some of our own case hunters. I know Tamil Takuya and Demon Reaper were going crazy when they saw this list top. And this deck as a whole is kind of crazy. Just it doesn't follow the conventional ratios because you have to play the Sistermons, which tends to make this deck extremely bricky, which is why it previously did not do well. And it's pretty cool to see this deck finally get its time to shine. They do increase its consistency with cards such as the Fireball and maxing out on the Disciple and playing a red memory boost. A card that stands out here is the second Mappa, which lets you unsuspend and activate one of your Digivolving effects, which for the Jesmon GX includes the Blitz. So if you're able to keep turn with the Jesmon GX after swinging, you can unsuspend and swing again, which is pretty powerful. I do want to say that this may be a symptom of the event not capping out, that this deck is able to do so well. But yeah, I would love to be proved wrong if somebody can top with Jesmon again, because again, Jesmon's a pretty cool Digimon, and I know that there's a lot of fans of this deck. But yeah, congratulations to you on your 8th place finish and winning an Omnimon with this deck. We have our 9th place Ancientgarurumon here, so this is a red base build. Just 2 cards I really want to talk about here are the Gravity Crush and the Venusmon. So the Venusmon provides a bit of a defensive option to the deck, being able to stop cards from activating the one devolving effect or one attacking effect is still pretty powerful to this day. And the Gravity Crush is a nice substitution for the Hammer Spark in the red base build because it lets you gain the 2 memory, and even though it has the downside of losing 2 memory at the end of your turn, most times you just use this to sneak in that last hybrid for game, which can be really powerful. And I guess there's also the X program, which is an interesting choice of removal. I'm not sure how this would be better than something like the Heaven's Judgment per se, because I do feel like DP reduction is probably better than just raw deletion. But besides that, yeah, it's cool to see that red base is still doing pretty well. This is our 12th place yellow vaccine list. So again, there seems to be a lot of discrepancy and variety in the way this deck is being built post-ban. So here we can see that they're again going heavy on the level 5s. So 2 Etamons, 2 Magnangemons, 2 Angemon Ace. And they have a bit of a varied top end with the 1 Valcase and the 1 Megagargamon Ace, while still maxing out on your armor top end with 4 Magnamon X and 2 Rapid X's. They have the Cody here, which is nice because it gains you a memory if you have a yellow Digimon in play, which is not really a 1-per-1 substitution for the BT14 TK, but it is still getting you a memory, which is pretty nice. But yeah, congratulations to you on your 12th place finish. Here we have our blue base Ancientgarurumon build that got 13th place. This is very interesting because they have a pretty heavy Source Strip package splash in here with the 4 Gomons, the 1 Zudomon Ace, and the 2 Sora Joes. And Source Strip is a very powerful mechanic in the game, and it's very interesting to see that splash in here. I am wondering how this really synergizes with the rest of the deck's game plan, and this is definitely a version of the deck I'm looking forward to testing out myself to see how much of an impact the Source Strip mechanic really has. But that really highlights one of the key advantages of the Ancientgarurumon package is it's a pretty lean deck, so you have a lot of room for playing these tech options and these consistency options. Congratulations to you on your 13th place finish with blue base Ancientgarurumon. Now, here's the list that everybody probably wants to hear me talk about the most, the Blackwargreymon list. So Blackwargreymon is basically a deck that we've seen almost no results from since BT13, and it's a pretty big shame because this is a deck that was basically symbolic of the game, even people calling the card game the Greymon card game. So it's quite sad to see the poster child of the game kind of die off like that in recent sets. And even myself, I'm a big Blackwargreymon fan. I loved playing Greymon Toolbox back in BT13, and I really tried my hardest to make it work in the future sets such as BT14, EX5, and BT15, but I feel like the introduction of the trainings really elevated a lot of decks and left this deck behind in the dust, simply because the tamers are black and you just can't grab them off your red trainings, and you're also whiffing key pieces to the deck like the X antibody option, and you can't just play black base because black base is just strictly inferior to the red base. But yeah, so it's really cool to see that this deck topped, because I have been saying, or I guess a better way to say this, I've been complaining for a while now that if the deck was just a smidge faster, this deck would do so well in the current format because it's so good at answering the board, at controlling small bodies, deleting tamers, swinging over unsuspended bodies. It really has a lot of the tools necessary to combat a lot of the meta. However, it's really being held back by the speed of the deck compared to other decks. So congratulations to you on really piloting this deck to a top 16 finish, and like I said, you can see a lot of the pieces here to combat a lot of the meta threats. You have Hades Force and Blackwargreymon to take care of tamers such as Koji's and Davis Ken. You have the Crimson Blaze, so bodies can't be just played out. You have the BTA Metal Greymon letting you swing over unsuspended bodies such as a Shoto, and you even have like the Godsmon Floodgate to prevent your opponent from playing things by effects. So yeah, like I said, this is, in my opinion, one of the true symbols of the toolbox nature of the game, and I'm really glad to see that it's able to get a top again after all these sets. So yeah, congratulations to you for piloting one of my favorite decks to a top 16 finish. I want to talk about another mother control list here. So this is pretty different from the other list and more akin to the list that we're used to seeing, a black hybrid sort of build here, but they have a lot of neat tech splash in here as well. So they have the Heaven's Judgment as a removal option. You have a lot of colors going on, so that makes sense. The Trident Arm is a pretty good card. It serves a similar function to the Sephirothmon or the Place's Demon, but also Digivolves, which can be really powerful sometimes. They also have the Digimon to help you cheat out your Shoto Kazamas or your Black Tamers, but more interestingly, it can also play out your Paladin mode ace, which can be quite annoying. And yeah, so like I said in the earlier Mother Control build, this deck really showcases one's ability to deck build. It's a deck that has a lot of room for innovation and creativity, so yeah, congratulations to you on your 15th place finish with this deck. Our final list for today is the 16th place Omnimon list, so I'm excited to see that this deck is still being able to break into the top 16 like this in large-scale events. So this deck seems to have gotten inspiration from a previous winning deck. They're playing the 1 of Supreme Connection and 3 of the BT14 Agumons, along with 3 Fireballs, so these are all pretty interesting additions to the deck. I'm still not a believer in the Supreme Connection deck, especially because you really are only using it with your BT17 MetalGarurumon, and you're also only playing 1 of the BT15 MetalGarurumons and 2 of the BT14 Wargreymons, which is interesting because I feel like, especially with the Shotos and Davis Kens running around, the MetalGarurumon is a lot stronger, just preventing them from suspending. They also have the 1 of Paladin mode ace here. The Paladin mode ace is a card that I really like in Omnimon. I just can't find the space for it, especially now with the Shoto Mother stuff going around. It's really nice to reset your trash. But yeah, congratulations to you on your 16th place finish. And that's our breakdown on the top 16 lists from the Mesquite regionals that took place, and some closing thoughts on the event as a whole and the format. So like I said, the event only had 214 players, not the full 384, so it is less than 2/3 of the cap, which I do feel is a pretty significant drop off and should be taken into consideration when you do look at some of the lists that topped here. But we can infer some key things from the breakdown here. So we can see that Mother Control is really innovating and pushing away from just purely control and also introducing a lot of aggressive elements to the deck so they have a more active win condition. So you saw the introduction of the Tureymon, the Paladin mode aces, the Quartzmons, which really provide a level of aggression, so they're not just going to time all the time and just getting a bunch of draws. And you're also seeing a lot of decks innovate in a way to play around Mother Control, so you're seeing the MirageGaogamon maxing out on the Mock Gaogamon that prevents redirection. We saw that one Imperialdramon list that played the 4 BT16 Dragon modes to pin down the Shotos, and we're seeing the Magnamon play the high-speed plug-in D. So a lot of decks are learning to play around the Mother Control. And like I said though, Mother Control is a deck that provides a lot of freedom and creativity for deck building. So I'm sure that players will find a way to build around these counters as well. So although the deck is a bit toxic, the interaction of the Shoto and the Mother, it has led to a very interesting reaction to where a lot of players are innovating, and we're seeing the reintroduction of a lot of decks from former formats that are able to perform well now. So I do believe we have 1 more regionals in this format before the introduction of 2.0, and I'm very curious to see how our meta really develops in the next set, because we are being introduced to a couple of interesting decks. We started getting reveals for 2.0, so we know that we're getting the Jesmon X, we're getting stuff like the Lord Nightmon deck, we're getting the Royal Base, we're getting the entirety of the Millenniumon deck. So I'm curious to see how these decks will also perform in our format, and a lot of these BT19 cards we don't really have too much data on because Japan just got their BT19 sets as well, so they're still discovering their format as well. So I'm really excited to see how our format progresses in 2.0. But before then, I really do want to see how our last EX7 regionals turns out, especially because I'm assuming it'll be a full event with the full 384 people. And yeah, overall, I think this format has been pretty fun. This is Warfight2896 signing off, and please let us know in the comments how you feel about some of these decks topping for the first time in a long time, such as Blackwargreymon or Jesmon, and how you feel about Mother Control.